What's up, Bills Mafia? I'm Fernando Schmude, and here is your leading the charge. And this Tuesday's episode today is all about what players or which players in this Bills roster must step up to their game so the team can reach the level they want. They can reach their awesome goals of coming back to a Super Bowl and win it all this time. So today's episode is all about this subject. Let me know your opinions via chat or in the YouTube comment section. If you are watching or listening in another moment and not live with me, let me know about your opinion about my list and let me know about your list so we can discuss and see how Bills Mafia is acting towards this list and which players do they think are the most important ones so the Bills can be successful in 2023. So, without further ado, let's go to my list. I'm going to comment about each and every one of them and let you know my reasoning behind this list. And before I move forward, I just want to let you know about this list is all about the players one. I know recently a lot of people has talked about Sean McDermott, and no doubt Sean McDermott, Ken Dorsey, and a lot of coaches inside the building must be on. They really must step up and must be um, on their best this season so the team can reach their goals. But today's episode is all about the players, so my list is all players included there, and I might come back in another opportunity to talk about the coaches since they have a big time season ahead of them. But today's list all about the players. So I will add them, comment on them, and let me know if you agree, disagree, and your reasoning behind your choices also. All right. Uh, I wanna before I start, let me ask you to hit that like button, subscribe to Buffalo Rumblings channel, and contribute to the leading the chart via sharing the content, commenting on YouTube section because the algorithm really needs your interaction so this show can reach more people, more Bills Mafia, and we can grow together. All right, Mafia, thank you so much for being with me and let me know your opinions. And if you have questions, feel free to ask via chat. Also, after talking about my list, I will be able to interact and answer your questions. And so let's move on. All right, who are the seven Bills who must step up in 2023 so the team can achieve the Super Bowl, can win it all, can move forward from previous seasons? These Bills have become a powerhouse in the AFC. They have won the AFC East 3 years in a row now, and but it's not enough, Bills Mafia. We really want to come back to a Super Bowl. We really want to win it all, and we've seen it recently with the Stephon Diggs drama and with the talk, especially from national media, who wanna start to put pressure on Sean McDermott to move on and to reach another level. We've seen the pressure is on. These Bills have established themselves as a powerhouse, as a true contender, but they must get past their rivals like the Chiefs and now the Bengals, and we know the AFC is just getting stronger and stronger, so it's not gonna get easier. So which players must step up so the Bills can move forward, can finally beat those opponents? And it's not always about the people who come from outside the building. The Bills have added a lot of players, even though they aren't the biggest names out there in the market. The Bills have done a lot of additions, a lot of interesting additions, both sides of the ball. They finally made an effort to improve the offensive side of the ball. They have uh, chosen to go defense most of the time via drafts, via free agents in the past, and the defense has achieved a nice level, especially during regular seasons. But as we've seen in the 13 seconds episode and last year also, uh, football has changed, and it's been harder to defenses to win championship, as the old saying, right? Like offenses win games and defenses win championships. I think it's a little bit outdated, and in today's NFL, it moved in the opposite direction. So now the offenses are more and more important, and defenses they aren't really capable of being dominant for entire games or entire playoff runs, and all they need to do is to really be prepared to get out of the field in important situations, in specific situations, or create some important turnovers during games. But it has become harder and harder to dominate an entire game, to keep a Super Bowl or a conference championship in a long score game. So the Bills, it seems like McDermott being, they have grown with their experience, and they started to think more about moving in another trend, and give weapons to Josh Allen. And you will see in my list how I really put more pressure on offensive side of the ball players than defensive side of the ball, just because, in my opinion, uh, it's really more important nowadays. I think you can't expect our defense, even if it's the number one ranked defense, even if it's a dominant defense, you can't expect them to hold uh, Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or other great quarterbacks and offenses below 20, 23, 25 points in a playoff game. It's really difficult to do. And that's why I think the offense really needs to step up, and that's why I really put more pressure on offensive players than defensive players, right? So I will start my list talking just about players, and let me know if you agree, disagree. And so here we go. Number 7, the seventh player who must step up in 2023 so the Bills can achieve their goals and finally win the AFC and come back to a Super Bowl. My guy, second year player, cornerback Kaiir Elam. I think Kaiir Elam is really important for this team, is really important for this defense, and he's the seventh guy that must step up in 2023. Uh, that's a guy with cornerback one potential. All right, that's a CB one potential guy, and even though he's in a competition and his starting spot isn't guaranteed right now, and he has some capable guys competing with him, with also second year player Christian Benford, who impressed as a rookie and is physical, he tackles well, and seems like a guy who's really smart and works really hard. And Dane Jackson has established himself as a dependable cornerback, a guy who's, despite his limitations, his obvious limitations in size and athleticism, that's a guy who knows the defense well, who already has that veteran vibe, despite not being an older guy, or not being as old as Hyde, Poyer, and Tre'Davious White. Dane Jackson already is more like a veteran than a young guy nowadays, even in Sean McDermott's and the coach's eyes. So, but why is Kaiir Elam so important? Why he must step up in 2023 so the Bills can achieve their goals? Because his skill set is unique, all right? And we have no guarantees that Tre'Davious White can come back to that all-pro level, despite the news being really positive about him during mini camps, during OTAs. He seems healthy. He seems really in shape and working hard. But to be fair, I never saw Tre'Davious White as a shutdown cornerback, like a guy who can play man-to-man defense, man-up press, and shut down opposing wide receivers, especially the most physical ones and the biggest ones. So he's really great. He's smart. He plays great in the Bills' schemes, especially zone defense. He can have some dominant games here and there, but he isn't really a shutdown quarterback style, Darrell Reeves style, or even Stephon Gilmore in his prime style. And now coming back, getting older, coming back from a difficult injury, I think he can play really well, but he's not this kind of guy. I think Kyrie Elam can be this kind of guy. Okay, Kyrie Elam can run with everybody. He's long, he's athletic, he can play press coverage, and it seems that the Bills have put him in a competition so he can get better, work harder. Brandon Bean interviews are about career are always about practicing better, improving during practice, and so it seems like Dan Jackson and Christian Benford are really workaholic guys, and they work really hard in practice and film room, and they probably want to see the same from Kyrie Elam. So we hope it can happen, and we hope Kyrie Elam really can win this competition for cornerback 2 spot, because nobody else, Christian Benford, Dan Jackson, those guys aren't going to be cornerback 1 material. They aren't going to play better than Tre'Davious White, for example, or they aren't going to be as dominant as Kyrie Elam can be. So that's why I have Kyrie in this list in the 7th place, because if he really wins the job and he really reaches his potential, even if Tre'Davious White never fully recovers to his to come back to playing at his best ever level, you can have another cornerback 1 in Kyrie Elam, and you can shut down people with Kyrie Elam and let Trey play in a different role. So it's going to be really important. I don't see no in the league who can run with Tyreek Hill in the league. Nobody can. But what we saw from Kyrie Elam in the last game against the Dolphins during that playoffs run was really impressive, and I don't see nobody else being able to stick to a guy like Tyreek Hill and do a job like Kyrie did in the last playoffs. Even prime Tre'Davious White would be in trouble doing so. So I think really Kyrie can add a different skill set, a different level of athleticism and length and potential, playing man to man, manning up and running with people. So Kyrie Elam, number 7, really important to this defense backfield to take the next step. I hope he can win his job as cornerback 2 and establish himself in his 2nd season as a prime young cornerback in the league. Next on the list, number 6, the 6th most important Bill in 2023 to step up in 2023 and elevate the Bills level. Edge Greg Rousseau. That's a guy who's being underrated, in my opinion, because when he was drafted, we thought about Rousseau like a guy with untapped potential and a boom or bust prospect, and a guy who could be flashy or could be a huge bust, and it never happened. Greg Rousseau actually became a pretty dependable guy, a pretty solid guy, but he hasn't been dominant as a pass rusher. And on the other hand, he has been awesome against the run, and you really could count on Greg Rousseau from week to week, delivering the same level of consistency and good level of play. He's been a good starter in this league. He's been really good against the run, and it looked like he was coming around and getting better as a pass rusher last season until he hurt himself. He had that injury, and he played through that injury, but it really limited him as a pass rusher. I'm curious to see Greg this year healthy again, and if he can really take the next step and become a more dangerous rusher, because that could really also unlock a different level of defensive line play for the Bills. It's especially important this season because we have Von Miller coming back from a difficult injury and a surgery. And even though Von Miller is a different animal and is a total beast, he's not getting any younger, and he's coming from a difficult injury that might take some time to really get comfortable again and get back at playing at his best. All again, just like Tre'Davious White, all the news regarding Von Miller are great so far. In his last interview, he has said about he's now making the transition back to the elite pass rusher instead of workout warrior. So it seems that his knee is recovered. It seems that he's focusing on getting back in football shape and being able to do his best. And we really don't need Von Miller week one at his best. We need him at his best when it matters the most. So Leonard Floyd eases his way back to the lineup, and when we have Vaughn and Floyd and Greg, we have a nice rotation, but we have also an interesting group to play on key on clear passing downs, right? So you can easily move Greg Rousseau inside, just like he was used at Miami, rushing from inside from defensive tackle positions. He can play that role and rush from inside. You can move on around. You can move Leonard Floyd around. So Sean McDermott can get really creative with those guys plus Ed Oliver. So if Greg Rousseau can step up his game a notch and he can become a more consistent and dominant pass rusher, just as he's a run defender, this Bills defensive line can take the next step and can really make things difficult for opposing quarterbacks. So Greg Rousseau, number 6 on the list. If he reach another level with Leonard Floyd, with Von Miller back, look out. This pass rush can be really dangerous, and Greg Rousseau can really become a marquee name in this league, still as a young player too, just like Irina. Let me know during the via comment sections, via YouTube comment sections, via chat online if you agree, disagree with my list so far. Your opinions, write your list. It's going to be a pleasure to interact with you. So, number 5 on the list, the 5th most important Bill in 2023. Maybe not the most important because we have the guys coming from other teams, coming via draft, also as important piece. But from the Bills roster from last season, who are the 7 most important guys who must step up in 2023 so the Bills can be successful? Number 5th on the list, Ed Oliver, defensive tackle. A kind of a Greg Rousseau partner, right? And another defensive player. So far, 3 defensive players on my list. 7th, Kyle Elam. 6th, Greg Rousseau. 5th, Ed Oliver. So Ed Oliver was a guy who most of Bills Mafia had on their trading block, right, during the offseason, and expected maybe to be moved during draft season and during the DeAndre Hopkins speculation period, especially, and obviously before he got released from the Cardinals. Ed Oliver is in his 5th year of his rookie contract, so a $10 million cap hit. That was the situation before the extension, right? And the Bills cleared the cap space, adding, actually resigning Ed Oliver and adding the space to add Leonard Floyd as a reinforcement to this defensive line. So the move was interesting. But Ed Oliver is locked for 4 more years. The Bills have some outs of his deal, but for the best scenario possible for everybody involved, the Bills and the player, he must play well in 2023. The Bills need him. One of the advantage of keeping Ed Oliver, even with that $10 million tag, was about expecting Ed to try to play even better in his contract year, right? The Bills won't have this kind of motivation from Ed anymore, but Ed has been on record about wanting to to overplay, to play better than his new contract, to really show that not only he deserves this money that he got, but he deserves even more in the next opportunity he has to negotiate. So it's good to see Ed Oliver really focusing and on playing better this season instead of getting comfortable with the new payday. And the Bills really need him. I think coming from the Bengals game, one of the things that nobody talks about enough, since it's all about Stephon Diggs being frustrated with the offense with Josh Allen, and it's been all the talk from the offseason, but nobody has talked enough about how much this defensive line really underachieved on that game. Like they faced a backup offensive lineman from the Bengals. They faced a huge opportunity to dominate on that game, and without Von Miller and without Daquan Jones, they couldn't. They simply were invisible. They couldn't win consistently. They never could impact Joe Burrows with him and that Bengals offense with him. So, and Ed Oliver was part of that really depressive game from the Bills defensive line. Um, he can't play this way, being way direct to the point. Ed Oliver must play better than that in 2023 if the Bills want to compete and win it all. They must have better performances from their defensive line, and it includes Greg Rousseau, obviously, as I mentioned. It includes obviously having Daquan Jones back, having Von Miller back, Leonard Floyd arriving, maybe a Peneza or Bashan or even Shaq Lawson, the guy who can win the job and stays on the roster, playing better. But Ed Oliver must be better, especially after this extension. He must dominate. We've seen flashes from Ed. He's been pretty dominant here and there, especially when Von Miller was still playing. He could play well off Von Miller, so that's a good sign. And the Bills really need Ed taking advantage of single blocks, right? Von Miller is gonna draw the double blocks and also the new signings and Daquan Jones, who played really well last season. The double teams are going their way. So Ed Oliver must establish himself winning those one-on-one battles inside with his quickness, with his speed, and make people adjust, force people to pay more attention to him, to double him, and to give more opportunities, maybe to Vaughn, to Floyd, to the other guys outside. So I really hope Ed can play better. He can stay healthy all year long. He's undersized for his position, so it's tougher sometimes to live, to survive for 18 weeks before the playoffs and being really healthy, being an undersized guy for defensive tackle position, facing so much traffic inside in those big guards and centers. But Ed must be dominant, even if his snap percentage goes a little bit down. Now that you have Daquan Jones, Puna Ford, you can make them do the dirty job of playing on run downs and early downs, and you can maybe keep Ed Oliver fresh for clear passing situations and in a way that he can stay healthy all year long. It would be really positive for this Bills defense. The same can be said about Jordan Phillips in a lesser degree, in a lesser level, but both of those guys are really dominant pass rushers when they are fresh and when they are healthy. So I hope Ed Oliver can stay this way and he can really overplay his contract and impact the game in a different way this season. So that's why he's the fifth on my list of so far just defensive players. The number 4 in my list of the most important Bills for 2023, the guys who must step up so they can elevate the team's level of play, is another defensive player, and the last defensive player on the list, actually. And that guy is linebacker Terrell Bernard. I've been pretty vocal about Terrell Bernard since Edmunds left, or since Edmunds was a possibility, since the possibility of losing Edmunds, actually. I've been pretty high on Terrell Bernard. I've been pretty vocal and supportive of Terrell Bernard getting his shot. A lot of people were like, no, no way, Fernando, no way Terrell Bernard wins the job. He's too small. He's a Matt Milano position only guy. He can't play alongside Milano. But since he got drafted, I couldn't help myself of thinking that was a guy who was drafted thinking about McDermott being thinking about the possibility of a life without Edmonds or life post Edmonds. Why? Because even though his body type, his size, his style of play screams Matt Milano, his mental makeup and all that was said about Terrell Bernard during his draft process and the pre-draft process, it's all scream captain of the defense. All right. When Coach Aranda sold Bernard to McDermott as a leader of the defense, when you come back and look at the scouting reports from Bernard at Baylor, and people saying, look, leader of the defense, look, leader of the Baylor defensive side of the ball, communicator, film junkie, hard worker, and green dot kind of guy. So all those kind of sentence, all those kind of words were said about Terrell Bernard as a prospect. And when you hear all this kind of stuff, you think middle linebacker, captain of the defense. So it was really Tremaine Edmonds' role and not Matt Milano's role. There is a reason the Bills don't want to move Matt Milano to Edmonds' role. Bean has already said it. McDermott has already said it, that Milano won't play middle linebacker. Milano probably won't call the defense side of the ball. And they really want the Mike linebacker to be a communicator, to set the defense, to make the right calls, to have their teammates well positioned. So Terrell Bernard, the scouting report of Terrell Bernard really told us that he was capable, or he was supposed to be capable of taking over this role, this Edmonds role in the middle of the Bills defense. Obviously, there are questions about his size. Obviously, there are questions about his playing, playing on the field, his playing level, because he hasn't played defense yet. He played for one game and it was awful. Not only Bernard's performance, but the entire defense performance on that game against the Jets. So it's fair to be concerned or to not trust Terrell Bernard as a fan right now. But when I look backwards and I look to the day the Bills decided to make Bernard a third-round pick, I look at that that scouting report, and I look at what they are talking about Dorian Williams this year, because all the talk about Dorian Williams applies to Terrell Bernard a year ago. People are forgetting that if Dorian Williams is the third pick, 91st overall this season, in the previous draft, Terrell Bernard was the third round pick, 89th overall, in a draft that was considered stronger at the linebacker position. So I'm not knocking on Dorian Williams, who's a prospect that I really liked and I really wanted as a Bill, even though during mock draft season, you were supposed to get Dorian Williams later in the draft. Mock drafts obviously are wrong all the time for a reason. So people were sleeping or overlooking Bernard for a long time now. But all that has been said about Dorian Williams this year could be applied to Bernard a year ago. So all that Dorian Williams is being prepared now, or when he's going through right now, Bernard went through a year ago. He played special teams. He played behind Milano, behind Edmonds. He learned the defense. He was there in the meetings. He was there in the film room. So he was learning the defense. He wasn't drafted to play alongside Milano and Edmonds. He wasn't drafted to play in the place of Edmonds or Milano when they were still there last season. No, he was prepared just in case Edmonds would move on, and he moved on, and now we have Bernard supposed to be prepared to take over this job and play really well. So I joke around all the time about being the president of Terrell Bernard's fan club, and but the truth, talking really being serious about this subject, my opinion is I really hope that Bernard can live up that scouting report, live up that all that hope that McDermott and Bean they had on him when they decided to draft him, and so he can live up to that hype, and he can really become a nice leader, a nice communicator, and I hope they can McDermott now at the command of this defense, he can make it work a double Milano linebacker pair, right? Because a lot of people grill Edmonds fans last season. I really liked Edmonds before last season already, but if we come back 1 year ago, a lot of people had questions about Edmonds not playing up to his size, uh, not being a solid tackler for his size, not being dominant, being used wrongly. People wanted him as an outside linebacker instead of middle linebacker. People wanted him more rushing the passer more. People had questions about Edmonds, and I think if you we come back, even right now, if you make this question, I think a lot of people would rather have two Milanos. But if you come back 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and you make a poll about what do you prefer, having Edmonds and Milano, or if you could have Milano and a Milano clone, I think most of the people would have a Milano clone alongside Milano as the most intriguing possibility. And I think that's when Bean had that interview in Chris Long's podcast, and he talked about Edmonds with all his size, and it's difficult to be so agile at that size, and how some mismatches would be problematic for Edmonds because of his size. I don't think he wanted to throw Edmonds under the bus. I think no matter how good a player is, he will have his strong points and his bad points, his weak links, right? And it's obviously that if you have two Milanos, two guys like Milano, you can make they even more interchangeable. You can hide more stuff from the opposing quarterbacks and offenses. You can try to confuse them more often. You can try to hide more who's blitzing, who's staying, who's covering that middle of the field. When you had Edmonds and Milano, you knew that, okay, it's a cover two, and Edmonds is this guy that is going to cover the deep middle and the seam route because of his size, his length, his speed in straight line. And Milano is the other guy being used underneath. I think now you obviously miss the Edmonds reach and his wingspan, his size, his speed in straight line, but you gain with this interchangeability between Milano and Bernard. All right. So why is he the fourth most important build in 2023 to step up from the guys who already were on the roster? Because I really believe if Bernard, and he isn't even guaranteed to be a starter, despite all the news during these mini camps, OTAs are about Bernard making plays, and it seems like he's getting ahead on the competition, and it seems more and more people are realizing that the Bills really want Bernard to win that job, that they really want to put him in position to win that job because he was drafted in the third round. He was prepared for that role, and he had that background as a leader, as a communicator. It isn't a lock that Daryl Bernard is going to be the starter, but if he isn't a starter, you can consider that third round pick another failure. Just like we already can consider AJ Peneza and Boogie Basham picks as failures by Brandon Bean and his scouting department. Because if you needed to sign Von Miller, you already had Greg Rousseau drafted also, and you needed to sign Von Miller and bring back Shaq Lawson and now add Leonard Floyd. Man, you failed. Your second round picks failed. Even if they can play well during preseason, they can impress and get back into the rotation and surprise people, but they aren't really confident that's going to happen because otherwise they wouldn't make all that gymnastics through Ed Oliver contract to add another pass rusher in Leonard Floyd. So those guys are still young. They can, just like Floyd, who didn't work out for the Bears and become a nice pass rusher for the Rams. Epeneza and Bashan might become nice pass rushers and hopefully still for the Bills, but maybe in another place, in another team. But we already can consider those picks failures by Bean and his scouting department, just like Cody Ford was another failure. So a lot of failures in the second round. And if Terrell Bernard don't win, if he doesn't win this job this year, it's a total failure. If you need to play Dorian Williams, a rookie third rounder, early in the season, it's a total failure in the Terrell Bernard experiment. If Braylon Spector beats out Terrell Bernard, it's a total failure by the Terrell Bernard draft pick and experiment. If Klein or if Terrell Dodson, those guys don't have the athletic ability as Bernard has to be that interchangeable piece with Milano. They are clear downgrades from Edmonds, and they are clear guys that nobody on opposing offenses are gonna be confused about who's playing which role between Dodson and Milano or Klein and Milano especially. It's gonna be totally exposed which roles they are playing. So they are as interchangeable pieces as Bernard can be, Dorian can be, and even Spector can be. So if one of those guys end up starting, it's a failure on Terrell Bernard experience. So I really hope he can step up. He can hold down that job. He can really become that middle linebacker, that leader of this defense, because it would show that the Bills hit on that third round pick. It will move Dorian Williams to a role that he can continue to be developed and grow and maybe be prepared to a life without Milano in the future, or be developed for a moment that you can. Thank God Milano has been pretty healthy recently, but he had his fair share of injuries in the past. And in case you need a player to play in Milano's place for if he misses some time for some reason, Dorian can have time to be prepared for that role. So I hope Bernard can really hold down that spot, can really be the nice leader and communicator that he was supposed to be when he got drafted, and can be a nice partner in crime to Matt Milano. If he can do that, the defense probably won't miss Edmonds as much as people are thinking they will. And if he fails and other people gotta play in his place, he's gonna be a total failure and another failure in Brandon Beane's resume as a general manager drafting in early rounds, like second and third rounds. So Bernard, the number 4 on the list. So far, Kai Elam, 7th, Greg Rousseau, 6th, Ed Oliver, 5th, Terrell Bernard, 4th on this list of Bills players coming back that must step up in 2023. What do you think, Bills Mafia? Let me know and hit that like button. Subscribe to Buffalo Rumblings channel. We appreciate all the help and we appreciate you taking your time. And please let me know about your list and your opinions about my list, please. Jorge Juan, Antonio Ramos, saludos desde Mexico, the best team, blue, red, white. Saludos, Jorge. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate your taking your time and let me know about your list of the 7 most important Bills in 2023. I keep repeating it, but it's not my list, right? Like, obviously, not the 7 most important Bills, but the 7 guys who must step up their games a notch so they can elevate the Bills to the next level and make them real Super Bowl contenders. So I already named 4 defenders, and the top 3 in my list is all about offense. Again, I already shared my thoughts about defense importance and offensive side of the ball importance. And yes, defense defenses are still very important, but I think offenses win championships nowadays. It's not like the old saying about defenses winning championships. You must score and take advantage of the turnovers and the times your defense can get out of the field. So number three on my list, the third Bill that must elevate his game and become a difference maker so the Bills can win it all in 2023. Running back James Cook. James Cook is the second year running back, second round pick, um, has game breaking speed, was supposed to be a total mismatch in the passing game, also was supposed to be able to line up as a wide receiver, also play as a running back, line up in the slot, be a total chess match piece, but we haven't seen it so far. He started slowly. He fumbled in his first ever NFL touch. He needed to learn the offense, earn his reps, and it seems that the Bills, just like the Bills want to make Bernard the middle linebacker for now, even more, I think they want James Cook to become a real difference maker as a running back one. The Bills moved on from Mother Singletary, and they brought in Damian Harris, who's a nice, solid running back who, if healthy, he can be a nice number one when healthy, okay? A nice power back in a solid number one. But if the Bills really want a true difference maker at the running back position, a guy who can hit that home run here and there, and a guy who can take a check down from Josh and or a screen pass and take it all the way, they need James Cook to be that guy. That's a guy who has that potential. I wouldn't put Damian Harris on the Christian Benford and Dane Jackson tier right now. All right, I wouldn't put him in this tier. I think he would be a bit better in terms of potential. But the comparison, I think it's fair. The comparison is fair between James Cook being the Kyrie Irving of the running back room. He has a unique skill set. Naheem Hines can't be an every down guy. He's a role player, and even though Naheem Hines can have some impact as a pass catching back, James Cook might be able to be the total package. And I'm not talking about a guy who needs can have 30 touches a game or run the ball 25 times a game. It's not necessary, especially in the kind of offense the Bills run. But if James Cook can hit some home runs and can become a dangerous check down weapon for Josh Allen and can consistently gain some yardage between the tackles too, the Bills can take a huge step forward in this offense that has struggled at least to consistently run the ball. Yes, it goes through Ken Dorsey choices of not falling in love with the passing game and forgetting to run the ball, but it also falls down on James Cook being consistent. It was normal to have a learning curve as a rookie, but now second season, the Bills really need James Cook to step up his game and to become a consistent threat from the backfield. It would help this offense tremendously. So number 3 on the list, James Cook, second year running back. Number 2 on my list, second on my list of the guys who must step up in 2023, elevate their games to elevate the Bills. Right tackle Spencer Brown. Look, man, I would love to be to be loved as Spencer Brown is by Bean and McDermott and the Bills front office. Those guys have showed, not just through words but through actions also, a real love and a lot of confidence on Spencer Brown being able to become more consistent, to take advantage of his awesome natural tools and establish himself as a dominant right tackle, as a nasty and powerful right tackle. Spencer Brown really came from a small school. He didn't play much during COVID season at college, and then was drafted as a third round and won the job midway through his rookie season and showed flashes. Really, he really improved the offensive line when he got in that unit and showed real flashes of dominance, especially as a run blocker. Uh, he also possesses the length to be a pretty dependable, a pretty consistent pass blocker at the right side of the line, but he just couldn't keep it up from his rookie year. He dealt with surgery, back problems, and a surgery for a young guy and a big guy. This is the kind of nightmare that nobody wanna go through, and he went through that. He lost his first two NFL off season of last year. He couldn't work with the surgery and the work to get back on shape and be prepared for the season. He couldn't really focus on improving and developing during off season, and the result was tough last season. Right, we saw second year players struggling, and I really believe he played even worse than in his rookie year. In his rookie year, he was more. He showed more flashes. I think last season was really difficult. He really struggled, but fortunately, he at least was able to stay healthy. And now he just had his first real NFL off season, right? So he's still young. He had a nice off season of work. He's healthy. Here I am talking about a guy winning a home run derby in a softball game, right? But he showed he's healthy. He showed he's ready to work, and nobody said many things about him. Obviously, no pad zone so far with mini camps, OTAs, but it's not bad when nobody's talking much about offensive linemen. So I think all eyes will be on Spencer Brown during training camps. The Bills didn't really bring competition. They haven't brought competition to Spencer Brown. They brought in Kissenberry. Kissenberry's back, and now Brandon Shell with a lot of incentives on his contract. That's really a fallback plan, and just in case Spencer Brown totally struggles and suck really bad. But if he can play at the minimal level of consistency, we won't see Brandon Shell playing as a starting right tackle for the Bills. So my hopes, that's why he's so high on my list, because the Bills really need him to step up and to become that guy that being McDermott and all the Bills front office envision him to be. He really needs to become that guy to let Josh Allen consistently work on through his reads and to make the offense really work with the running game, the passing game. So that right side was a huge problem last season, thanks to Spencer Brown's struggles. But this year, a healthy Spencer Brown with a nice off season, I hope he can really step up his game and become solidified, right, his place as a right tackle of the present and the future for the Bills. So that's why he's so high on my list, and he's in number one just because I believe you can get around Spencer Brown struggling a little bit easier than the next guy on my list, because you always can keep Knox or keep a tight end to help Spencer Brown, keep the running back to help him. And so there are ways to minimize Spencer Brown's struggles, things that the Bills have done recently in the recent season, so you could minimize his bad play. The same can't be said about the next guy on my list. Number one, the most important guy, the guy who really must step up next season so the Bills can take the next step. They can beat the Bengals, the Chiefs, or every other opponent in the AFC, get to the Super Bowl and win it all. This guy is wide receiver Gabriel Davis. I think from the guys who the Bills have coming back to the roster, no doubt in my mind, he's the guy who must step up and become a better contributor that he has been. I'm not out there saying Gabe Davis is awful, or I'm not out there putting him first overall in my list because I don't like the guy or hate the guy or things like that. No, I just believe that the Bills really have an elite quarterback and an elite number one wide receiver. And I believe the success early in the season really happened because people were afraid of Gabriel Davis since he had that huge game against the Chiefs 2 years ago. And it gave Diggs space to work, right? And with the season coming along last year and Gabe Davis, especially after injuring his ankle and playing through it, but it really impacted the way he run routes, the way he could come out of his breaks, be explosive, separate. So it was really problematic for Gabe Davis, and there was a reason that Ken Dorsey started to use Gabe Davis almost exclusively as a deep threat guy and running only deep routes, the post, the corners, the fly routes, and the comebacks. And Gabe Davis wasn't even successful running those curl and comeback routes as he was in the past. I believe thanks to that injured ankle. So with Davis healthy again and having a nice off season of work and working hard, that's a hard worker guy. I hope he can really get back to that level that we saw against the Chiefs on that 13 seconds game and early last season against the Rams and against other few teams, Titans early that season, because that was a guy with real potential to be a good number two. The Gabe Davis that we saw late last season, that's not number two material, not top-notch number two material, in my opinion, unfortunately. And there was a reason that he only had success on deep routes, and he was used on such a difficult way to be productive and consistent. Because if you are only catching deep bombs, deep throws, obviously it's going to be more difficult to keep that catch percentage high. And the Bills need more, right? The Bills need more. We saw that teams started to not fear Gabe as the season went along last year. If it was because of the ankle or not, we'll see this year. But teams started to look at him and be like, you know what? Let's see if this guy can beat us, and let's double and let's bracket Diggs all the time. And teams started to send a lot of attention to Diggs and really make the Bills beat them with other guys. And Gabe Davis couldn't, Dawson Knox couldn't consistently. Shakir was a rookie and few opportunities couldn't. McKenzie struggled a lot. There is a reason they moved on him. So it became real difficult. And with Stephon Diggs watching this, seeing this, and nobody else stepping up, obviously, even though he was doubled or in bracket, he would want the ball because he knew he was the only guy capable of beating those defenses. And Josh as a quarterback and the decision maker, obviously he trusts his guys and he has a trust in Gabe Davis. So he threw a lot of those. People want to put it on Dorsey all the time about third down, third and short, and the Bills are throwing deep passes. But look, most of the time those deep routes are just clearing the intermediate and short routes, right? It's a go route. Sometimes it's just clearing the space for a corner, a drag route, a flat route, etc. So Josh isn't obligated or even supposed to throw that route, but he goes there because he sees Gabe Davis one-on-one and he can put the ball on the money. He will go there. We know that that's a guy who's really aggressive, right? So he trusts Gabe and he put the ball in Gabe's hands on several times like this. And unfortunately, Gabe dropped it or couldn't make the play on the ball or beat the corner, allowed the corner to make good plays. So we need Gabe Davis to step up and make those plays, hold on those balls, become a more explosive guy again, and a guy who can do more, not just be used as a deep threat, and really punish people who let him go 1-on-1 against cornerback twos or threes. So that's a guy who must step up, become a it's I even don't think it's fair to expect Gabe Davis to be the guy from the Kansas City Chiefs game from 2 years ago, because that's number one material numbers, obviously. But he got to play closer to that level than to the level that he's been playing recently. So if he can step up his game and be a player closer to that Gabe Davis, I think the Bills have a solid group of wide receiver. You have your number one in Diggs, who's gonna win most of the time, especially when not bracketed and double teamed. You will have rookie Dalton Kincaid being able to get his opportunities 1-on-1. You will have Dawson Knox still being able to have a nice impact. You have the new guys coming in. Deontay Hardy is a guy who I'm really curious to see in this offense. So Shakir entering his second year is supposed to improve. So it opens up the entire offense, and that's the reason I wanted, and I still want DeAndre Hopkins so bad, because DeAndre Hopkins guarantees you this kind of productivity, right? So that's why I really think getting Hopkins would be huge for this Bills offense. But the Bills and Bean haven't seen it this way, it seems, right? They had some opportunities to add him. They aren't sold or paying a lot of money to Hopkins, and it's understandable, but they really need Gabe Davis to step up, and I hope he can do that, and he can get back to that nice level that he was playing a year ago or around a year ago, and he can really improve this Bills offense. All right, guys. So that's my list. I really believe that if those guys step up their games, play a little bit better, at least they can climb a tier in their games, right? They can climb a tier in their games. The Bills should be very well positioned to win it all this year. I believe this Bills team is the best Bills team that Brandon Beane and McDermott have assembled, even with the loss of Tremaine Edmonds. But it goes through those guys developing, getting better. Most of the guys on the list are really young, are still young, right? So we're talking about 25-year-old and younger in this list. So those guys are supposed, most of them are early round picks, right? So those guys are supposed to be better, to keep developing, to be elevated a tier. So I really hope that those guys can step up, can elevate their games, and can elevate the Bills alongside their improvements, and make things easier to Josh Allen, to Stephon Diggs, to Von Miller, and to those guys that we know, Hayden Poyer, White, guys that we know are going to deliver, Milano. Those guys deliver week in and week out. Those guys are championship material players at their positions. We know that. We've seen that. So I hope those young guys can develop. They can step up. They can become the players they were drafted to be. And I really believe the Bills can win it all if it happens. So again, my list, 7 guys who must step up in 2023 to make the Bills real contenders. Number 7, Kyrie Elam. Number 6, Greg Rousseau. Number 5, Ed Oliver. Number 4, Terrell Bernard. Number 3, James Cook. Number 2, Spencer Brown. Number 1, Gabe Davis. Okay, guys, that's my list. Let me know about your list. If you are listening via Spotify, via podcast, if you are watching via YouTube, let me know your list. Write it down in the YouTube comment section so we can discuss. I have the offensive guys in the first 3 positions because I really believe the offense must be more consistent and dominant, and the defense plays a supportive role to the offense, not the opposite. I don't think the Bills defense is going to lead the team to a Super Bowl, and the offense side is just play enough to get there. I really believe Josh Allen must lead that offense to beat their opponents, and the defense is going to play a supportive role, getting off the field when necessary. But if you don't agree, let me know. It's going to be a pleasure to talk and debate with you. And to finish this episode of Leading the Charge, I have one honorable mention, and that guy is quarterback Josh Allen, obviously. All right. It's difficult. It's always difficult to put Josh Allen in a list like that because the guy has done so much, and I understand the Bills fans that can't never say a bad thing about Josh, because I think I'm way more on that side of the fan base than on the side. Can't even call it a side because I don't believe there is a side that wanna put more stuff on Josh Allen's shoulders. We've seen a guy come from draft day and nobody believing him, including me, and that guy could really show us what he's all about. Always working hard, always focusing on what he could do and not on what was being said about him. Never say bad things to the media. Never throw teammates under the bus. Fernando, he yells at his teammates sometimes. Yes, he yells like, let's go, let's get better, gotta get better. But when he's interviewed, he's always all about, I gotta do this better. Oh, you don't need, Dorsey should call something different. I gotta be better. Oh, you don't think your wide receivers are dropping or not separating. I gotta throw it better. I gotta play better. You don't know. You don't think your defense should held the ball 13 seconds left. No, I gotta be better. He's always claiming all the responsibility and supporting his teammates. That's why his teammates love him, because that's a guy who he is the franchise. He's the franchise quarterback. He's the face of the team. Heck, he's the face of the NFL nowadays with the Madden cover. But he understands that just like when the Bills finally win it all, people are gonna crown Josh Allen. Not until this day arrives, he can take all the blame to himself and keep his teammates clean. And he's like, look, Gabe, don't worry about your drops, about not separating. Go and work. I have your back. Or Stephon Diggs, no matter what he's arguing about and wanting differently, when they're gonna ask Josh about it, Josh is like, I got his back. So Josh always does the right things, and we saw him leading a team with no talent at all in his rookie year, and he was giving Cole Beasley, he was giving John Brown, and really not just got better with those guys, but make those guys have their best seasons also. So we've seen Josh Allen do amazing stuff. We've seen he convert third and longs when nobody else would do that. And we've seen he outduel Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs when everybody's crowning Mahomes the next GOAT. So I have no doubts in my mind that Josh Allen has potential to be the best quarterback in the NFL, same tier as Mahomes, even better. He has done more with less. I haven't seen Josh throw as many guys, wide open guys as Mahomes has thrown. I haven't seen he throw as many slants for 5 yards that guys take and turn it on 80-yard touchdowns. So I haven't seen Josh Allen have Andy Reid's offense at his disposal since his first snap in the NFL. I haven't seen him playing behind a wall like the Chiefs built for Mahomes. So the list goes on. I have all the confidence in the world. Josh Allen is capable of leading the Bills to the promised land, to the Super Bowl. But with that said, we can't say that Josh Allen played great against the Bengals last playoffs, or that he couldn't have played better, or that he always have the best decisions in the world. So I really believe Josh is still as impressive as it sounds. He still has room to grow. All right, he still has room to grow. So Josh must take the next step on decision making, protecting the ball, and especially taking what defenses give him. So a lot of those deep shots on third down conversions were Josh choices, and even though he put the ball where it was supposed to be, there were guys running free underneath, and he simply ignored them, or he became too greedy, wanted the big play. It's not always necessary, right? So Josh must take the next step also on his decision making and living for another down, because he's the kind of talent that can elevate everybody around him to a new tier. And obviously, if those guys from my list elevate their games, it's gonna make Josh life easier, right? But it's not a guarantee. And I really believe Josh himself, with few adjustments, few more experience, better decision making, he can even play a better, avoid those bad stretches of 2-3 games where he throws interceptions and gets frustrated and seems like out of rhythm. He can avoid that and in fact win his first MVP, and in fact lead the Bills to a first Super Bowl win. So that's why he's my honorable mention in my list. What's your list, Bills Mafia? Let me know. It's gonna be a pleasure to discuss, to see your list, and to talk to you via chat, via comment section in YouTube. I'm closing today's leading the charge. Marcelo is here on the audience. Thank you so much. He just commented here. This is the year other wide receivers or other weapons outside Diggs, mainly Gabe Davis. This is the year that they finally must step up and play better. It's gonna be a decisive factor for the season. I totally agree, Marcel. That's why I have Gabe as number one on the list. That's it, Mafia. I really appreciate you taking the time. That's your leading the charge. I'll be back next Sunday, totally in Portuguese for Bills Mafia in Brazil, in Portuguese speaking language, Brazil mainly, but also Latin America. And Jorge will be welcome in Portuguese. Okay, Jorge. Unfortunately, Spanish is not my strength, but I'll be back next Sunday, and in English next Tuesday, every Tuesday, 5 p.m., leading the charge live via Buffer Rumblings. Thank you so much. Had a blast with you. See you next Tuesday in English, next Sunday in Portuguese. Thank you so much, Mafia, and go Bills.